Good evening, everyone. Here with the day I've been looking forward to for a few months now. Doing our Daytona 500 preview. Finally here, the biggest race of the NASCAR season. I know the championship means you win the championship, but all drivers will tell you this is the race they want to win. This is a life-changing race. Before we get into some of the stuff, I'll go through real quick. Got some news today. Brad Keselowski, the driver for Roush Fenway Keselowski, one of them drives the number 6 car, had broke his leg in a skiing incident in December, has been totally cleared for race activity. So that's a big plus that he'll be able to race this weekend. On another note, we could potentially see some weather roll in Sunday for the 500. Fingers crossed it doesn't. We just went through a lot of weather issues in North Carolina. So for the Clash we just had to push it back from what was supposed to be Saturday, Sunday to a Wednesday event. So we're going to hope for the best. It is Florida, so weather can change at the drop of a hat. It could be 80 degrees and sunny by then, but could also be a torrential downpour. So just can, tell everybody that if you're planning on going, that definitely, just like I say about any other sporting event, check the weather because you never know. Other than that, that's really the main news that came out. They have made one change to qualifying where used to be, past few years especially, you would see drivers when they get out for qualifying, they would hold their hand up to the window, believe it or not, to try to deflect air from coming in the car. That doesn't really do much, but in a sport where a thousandth of a second can be the pole, you never know. So they've made it to where now you can no longer do that. Once you leave pit road, you can't hold your hand up, can't do anything to try to manipulate the air, in other words. So don't really know that it's that big of a deal, but again, I mean, it could be. Some drivers really like to do it. Some never did. Joey Logano loves to do it. I can remember watching Kevin Harvick. He never really liked to do it. He said he would prefer to have 2 hands on the wheel at all times. And there's got to be something said for being able to go around a speedway like Daytona at 190, 195 miles an hour and only got 1 hand up and 1 hand on the wheel. I mean, so, that's pretty impressive to be able to do. But other than that, it's really all the news coming up leading into it. Like I mentioned, this is the biggest race for NASCAR. Call it their Super Bowl, which is weird because it's the beginning of the season and we just had the Super Bowl for the NFL. Hopefully this Super Bowl is a little more entertaining. So this is really the race that started NASCAR back in the 1950. 1959 was the first Daytona race. And it was won by Lee Petty, but yet we'll get into the finish of it here in a few minutes when I talk about some of the closest finishes in history. But it's really what changed the sport and brought it forward. That race was obviously the first one, and I want to say it was the 79 Daytona 500 that really put the sport on the forefront. That was a race where, kind of like this year, the whole country, the east part of the country where NASCAR was mainly originated back in those days, was under severe blizzards and storms, and that race was on TV, and CBS broadcast it for the first time ever from start to finish. I believe it was CBS. Don't hold me to that. I'm pretty sure it was, though. But at the end of the race, you had a wreck, and you had the Allison brothers, Bobby and Donnie, and one other guy, and I want to say it was Cale Yarborough, were just out there throwing haymakers at each other in the infield after the wreck. And they didn't even, the cameras didn't even really focus on the guys coming to the checker. They focused on the fight. And it kind of just sparked a whole new level of interest for NASCAR. And then it slowly took off, and it's now grown to where it is now, which, is one of the mainstream sports in America. Some say it is, some say it isn't. I think it is. It's big. It's a spectacle. It used to be a 2-week long to whatever process with cars getting down there, getting on track for practice. It was this whole, called it Speed Weeks. Still call it Speed Weeks, even though it's done in 1 week now, but there's other events around it. They're racing down in New Smyrna with the legend cars and late models and stuff like that. So that's going on down there. So it's all kind of tied into one down there. So it's the biggest. It's the biggest spectacle in auto racing, in my mind. The Indianapolis 500 is big in its own right, but I think Daytona trumps it. Just my opinion. Not trying to offend any IndyCar fans, just my opinion on it. So we'll jump into some of the past winners and the most all-time and multiple winners. So kind of no surprise if you follow NASCAR or know much about NASCAR, you'll know a lot of these names. The person with the most Daytona 500 victories is Richard Petty with 7, known as the King. Cale Yarborough, who I just mentioned a minute ago, has 4. Bobby Allison, Dale Jarrett, and Jeff Gordon. We're getting closer to people that are more, known nowadays. Jeff Gordon all have 3. Bill Elliott, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jimmy Johnson, Matt Kenseth, Sterling Marlin, Michael Waltrip, and William Byron have all won 2. Now, William Byron has won the past 2, 24 and 25. Nobody has ever won 3 in a row. So he could make history this weekend. Petty's won twice in a row. He won 73, 74. Let's see. Cale won 83, 84. I don't really know that there's been any other multiple back. Oh, Denny Hamlin, 19 and 20. Other than that, Sterling Marlin to 94, 95. So you've had a couple of people win 2 in a row, but nobody's ever won 3. So we could see history this year. I'll get into that a little bit later on. Appreciate you tuning in, Doug. Who's the favorite to win Daytona? We'll get into that at the end. I've got some talk about the fantasy teams and the fan rewards. We'll get into that in a minute, but that's a very good question. You'll kind of be shocked by the answer because it's Daytona. Those are your, just winners and multiple people that kind of the big dogs of the sport. My favorite driver, coming aboard was Kevin Harvick forever. He won 1. Mention that one here in a few seconds. When we jump into closest finishes, what were the closest finishes in Daytona 500 history? And I think this is important because you really have 3 major race organizations. You have, NASCAR, of course, Formula One, IndyCar. Australia has the Australian Supercar Series, which is really interesting to watch too if you ever get a chance. But in F1, you don't get a lot of close finishes. Sometimes the leader's out by like 25, 30 seconds ahead of the second place car. You may have some battles further in the pack, but as far as for the win, IndyCar, a little bit closer, but still you can have a lot of spread out finishes. But yet you go to Daytona, and I've just got the top 3 listed. And The closest finish in Daytona history was February 21st, 2016. Denny Hamlin beat Martin Truex Jr. by 1/100th of a second. That's 0.010. So you got to realize these cars are doing 190 right around there. So you can imagine how quick you cover 0.01. I mean, you're talking inches, half inch, quarter inch. The second closest in Daytona history was February 18th, 2007, and that was 2/100ths of a second. And that was Kevin Harvick over Mark Martin. The third is Austin Cindric beat Bubba Wallace by what seems like a mile. He beat him by 0.036. So, yeah, that seems like, if this is 0.01, this is 0.02, this is like 0.0. That just seems like a huge amount, and it's not. I mentioned the 1959 race, and I think this is kind of one of the funnier stories of NASCAR. Was that race was, of course, the inaugural race, and Lee Petty won it, as I mentioned a minute ago. But yet, he didn't know he won. He thought he won, but NASCAR gave the win to somebody else. Lee Petty threw a fit. Bill France Sr., the founder of NASCAR, took 3 days to get all of the newspaper, the photos, everything they could get their hands on to change the rule and to change the outcome of the race to make Lee Petty was the winner. That was about 2 foot, they said. But that just tells you how far technology's come. It took 3 days to get all the photos and all the documents and everything they needed. But yet now we have it in split seconds with all the technology upgrades. So thought it was a little interesting that you could take that long to, it'd be like saying you're going to, we ran the Kentucky Derby, but we're going to wait 3 days to figure out who won. So just a little interesting nugget there for me that I thought. Moss. Yep. Got that clean shave going. Told y'all had to. Talking my favorite 500 guy. It's a big event, man. Big. Been looking forward to it for a while. Just talked about closest finishes. Let's bring up the worst end of the spectrum. The worst wrecks. And again, I've only listed 3. Number 1 all time of wrecks at Daytona was 2001, and that was the accident on the last lap that Dale Earnhardt Sr. Passed away in. He hit the wall and passed away from the injuries in that wreck. That's there's probably been other fatalities, of course, in racing, but that's the biggest one at Daytona that everybody can remember. Any NASCAR fan will tell you. In 1961, you had a bunch of different accidents in a row, a chain reaction of them. Lee Petty, Richard Petty, and Kyle Petty's grandfather and Richard Petty's dad was left in a coma for 4 days after one of the wrecks at Daytona. And in 2020, Ryan Newman was hospitalized and then being smashed into by Corey LaJoie. You can go watch the wreck of that on YouTube, and you'll wonder how he survived, to be honest. And he was out of racing for a month or 2, maybe. I don't even know if it was that long, to be honest, but he was back in the car same year racing. So those are just some of the wrecks, and I don't like to focus on them. They happen. Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, your super speedways. Daytona and Talladega are over 2.5 miles long. Atlanta is 1.5 miles, but it races like that. So I don't like to harp on them, but in those racing drafting style tracks is what they're called nowadays. The cars are so close. I mean, I'm talking when you're in the draft, you may have, say 30 cars in the draft. Those cars are crossing the start finish line, the leader, and the last guy in the draft is maybe a second or two behind. And you're talking 30 cars, So they're really compact. So if somebody makes a mistake at the front of the field, call it the big one. Normally, there's times it takes out 23, 24 cars. There's times that it damages that many cars. But there's times where all those cars are just torn up. Can't even continue, nothing. So got to watch out for it. One thing, we'll get into that topic in a second. I didn't put it on the list, but it was brought up today, and so we'll go into it. Next is qualifying, and most of the time when you qualify for a race, it's based on speed. One lap, how fast can you go? Daytona is different. It's the only race that does this, and it's been this way for years. So you'll have single car qualifying, and you'll go out and run your lap, and the top 10 will advance to round 2. Round 2, whoever's the fastest out of those 10 and the second fastest are your pole sitter and outside of the pole for the race on Sunday. I'll go into the schedule as to when we'll do all this. So that's how that works. Then after that, everybody is broken into 2 groups, and your pole sitter and all of the speeds will be developed out or spread out so that you will put even amount of cars in there. And what they'll do is they'll race on Thursday. They'll have 2 dual races, is what they call, and the finishing order of those is how you line up. Now, first and second place are already taken. So let's say the pole sitter is me. I've done it on speed. I'm already there. It comes to the duel. Maybe just hang out in the back, make some laps, don't damage your car. Well, the problem with that is they're giving away points for the duel. So first place gets 10, 9, 8, all the way down to 1 point for 10th place. Now, NASCAR is based on points for the playoffs and the championship. So every point, I've seen 1 point make a big difference in this sport. So you're not really going to do that. Now, what'll happen is they'll run the first race, and okay, so I'm on the pole. Let's just say I finish 18th in my duel. Then doesn't matter. I still go to the pole position. But then everybody else, like the guy who won that race, will start third. So the first duel sets positions 1, all the odd positions, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, which is your inside line. The second duel will set even positions, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, all the way down. Now you ask how many cars make it. Well, 41 will make the race. 36 have charters, which is what NASCAR goes to. Those 36 are locked in. Your 36 they've already got starting spots. They don't have to qualify on speed. They're in. They've paid for the charter. They're in. So then you go to when you go into the qualifying, back up to the first part where I said on speed, the 2 fastest, what they call open cars, will automatically secure spots in also. Their starting position will be based on their dual finish. There is a total of 47 cars, I think, trying to make the race. So you got 41, so 6 cars are just going to try to make it and go home. They're not going to make the race. That's that. So there's 40, you got 36 plus 2 already because the 2 open cars that qualify. So you got 38 from the duels. The 2 highest finishing open cars from the duels will also go in, just the 2 highest, 1 in each duel. Those will now make 40. And you're saying, well, man, you said there was 41. Jimmy Johnson is using a provisional. They have 1 provisional, which is an OEM. I think that's what they're calling it. Maybe not, but it's a provisional thing that they've done for past champions of different motorsports, but you have to apply for it and all this. And he obviously got it. So he's guaranteed. So you'll have 41 cars that'll start Daytona, no matter, I mean, Jimmy Johnson, he could finish last in qualifying and last in his duel, and he's still going to make the race. So that's how it works there with the qualifying. Then we move on. We'll jump into the schedule. Now, I told you I was Speed Week. So you can guarantee this is going to be a lot of info. Now, all this info is on NASCAR.com. You can break it down by weekend schedule. You can break it down by the series you want to watch, the trucks, the O'Reillys, the Cup. You can break it all down. I'm also going to mention the ARCA Menard series. The ARCA Menard series is the kind of like rookie ball in baseball. Very young up and coming people. People that are trying to make a name for themselves and then maybe move into the truck series next year and then just keep moving their way up the list. So where most people start is ARCA. So Wednesday at 8:15 p.m., you'll start seeing, these are all times for Eastern, by the way. These are all Eastern times. So Wednesday is single car qualifying, starting at 8:15 p.m. And if I'm not mistaken, that is on FS1. Let me do a quick little research here and verify that, because sometimes it's on Fox and sometimes it's on FS1. So let's see, Wednesday. So actually they're doing practice. The first practice is going to be a 50-minute session, and it starts at 10 a.m. for the Cup Series on Wednesday, and that's on FS1. The qualifying is at 8:15 p.m. It's also on FS1. Then that leads us to Thursday, which is the duels. The first duel is set for 7 p.m. on FS1 again, and the second one is scheduled to follow based on cautions and all that stuff, roughly 8:45 on FS1 again. So now we're done with qualifying. We have the field and the lineup and everything is set for the race on Sunday. Friday at 1:30 p.m., you have the ARCA Menard series qualifies. That's not on TV. 3 p.m. is the Craftsman Truck Series qualifies. That's on FS1 also. FS1 is the home for the Craftsman Truck Series throughout the whole year. That's where all their stuff will be. So that's on FS1. 4:30 p.m. on Friday, you get the O'Reilly's Auto Parts Series practice. That's on the CW network. They have an app. I don't know. CW, I hear people say sometimes they get the stuff, sometimes they don't. Don't know. Don't know what to tell y'all. I've never had a problem. It's always been on my TV. There is a CW app you can get, and it's probably on there. That's at, like I said, 4:30 on Friday. At 5:30, you get the second practice for the Cup Series, another 50 minutes of practice on FS1. Following that, that'll pretty much lead you into 7:30 p.m. is the Craftsman Truck Series race. That's a point to where if you have the fan rewards that I've mentioned numerous times, you click the check-in, you get your 50 bonus points right there. You probably be able to check into the dual races too, but not both, just once, and get another 50 points. So you have an option right there. We're still in Friday, and we've already got 100 points for nothing, just hitting a button on the NASCAR app. That leads us into Saturday. 10 a.m. you get O'Reilly's qualifying, the Auto Parts Series qualifying on CW again. That's at 10 a.m. At noon, you get the ARCA Menards race on Fox. At 3, you get third practice for the Cup Series teams on FS1. At 5 p.m., you get the O'Reilly's Auto Parts race on the CW network. Really enjoy watching those races, because those two especially, because they're under the lights, and there's just something about those lights coming off those cars, the shiny. So that concludes your Saturday, and then of course Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, the Daytona 500. Could have weather, like I mentioned. If we do, the race is early enough, maybe the weather pushes out, they can run the race. Obviously, Daytona has lights, so we can run it at night. We're going to keep our fingers crossed, everybody, that don't have to deal with the weather. Hopefully. So people always ask me, how much do these guys make for the Daytona 500? It's hard to say, because NASCAR has stopped announcing the amount of payouts now. Don't know exactly why, but I can tell you in 1959, the whole purse was $53,000. If I'm not mistaken, I saw somewhere Lee Petty won $19,000 for winning the race. 19,000 doesn't seem like a lot by today's standards. Now in 2015, the purse had gone from the $53,059 to $18 million. It's a huge gap and it's been going up every year since then. I mean, up to that point and since then. I saw a thing the other day. This was the last year they announced that Joey Logano won like 1.1 million for winning the race that year. So 1.1 million versus 19,059. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. 2020, the purse went up to 23 million. 2023, it was at 26 million. 24 was at 28. This year is upwards of 30 million. 2025 was over 30 million. So this year is probably going to be even more than that. And then, I mean, that's broke down between all 36 chartered. Open cars don't get any money, even if they win the race. Now, they're going to get lots of notoriety and sponsors and things like that, but they don't get any portion of the prize money, just the way NASCAR does it. So we're going to see what happens. Like I said, I don't know exactly how much they make, but I can tell you it's over $2 million. The winner of the race gets $2 million. So it's pretty good amount, pretty good chunk of change. And I misspoke. It wasn't 1.1 million. It was 1.58 million is what Joey Logano won in 2020 or 2015. I'm sorry. So we've gone through all that. That being said, you jump into, as soon as I can click the button, we go to Doug's question here. Who is your favorite to win Daytona? The easy answer is there isn't one. Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta are wild cards to me. Now, that being said, you make me pick somebody, I'm probably going to go with either William Byron, the 24 car, possibly Denny Hamlin in the 11. He's won 3 of them. I think the Sentimental favorite is Kyle Busch. He's never won one. So I think he's the sentimental favorite that everybody wants to see win one. I'd like to see the 21 car win one, mainly because that's my driver. But favorites are hard to pick in Daytona. Favorites are hard to pick in auto racing, period, because you're not there. There's so many other factors in it. I mean, you could go back to last year's championship race. Denny Hamlin was dominating the championship race last year. There was a late caution. He came in. Some people took 2 tires. He took 4, put him behind. He never could make it up and lost the championship because of it. So there's so many more different things involved with as to who's the favorite. Now, when I go into fantasy and fan rewards, I've mentioned it before. We have a WTP Sports Dudes Facebook page. You can go there. You can scroll through the comments on there, and you'll find a post that I made that says the username and the password for a fantasy group I created on NASCAR. It's a private group. Obviously this will be on YouTube. Questions can come up. I monitor my comments throughout the week. You post a comment, a question about fantasy, I'll answer it. Am I by any means an expert on NASCAR fantasy? No. I'm terrible. I mean, I finish terrible every year, but I do it because it's free points for my fan rewards. This weekend alone, you get the 50 for checking into the duel. You get 50 for the Truck Series race. You get 50 for the O'Reilly's race. You get 50 for the Cup Series race. That's 200 already. Then you turn around and you get 50 for a fantasy team. You're at 250. If you built your fan rewards profile and did all the stuff and checked all the little boxes for the emails and newsletters and stuff, that's like 250. You're sitting at 500. You're 1/10 of the way to 2 free tickets to a NASCAR race of your choice, whether later this year or next year. When they come out for next year, they're not out for next year yet, but when they come out, you've got points for them, free. And you're 1/10 there already. And you've only done 1 out of 38 weekends. 36, I'm sorry. 38 weekends, 36 racing weekends. And some weekends you can get 100 points. Some weekends there's only the Cup Series, so you get 50 points. Some week there's all 3, that's 150 points. That's just for the races. You also get you get points for playing fantasy every week. You get points for streaks, for how many check-ins you do in a row. I can tell you that I will probably be at 5,000 points, probably about 10 races into the season. Now, I'm at the champion level, so I get bonus points and all this, but you can get up there pretty fast too. There's no other sport that makes it as easy to get free stuff. If you know of one, please let me know, because I don't. That gives you tickets, gives you merchandise, autographed merchandise for just going to an app and clicking a button. And if you're wondering, well, what if I'm not following it as close as somebody like me? How would I know the races? Well, if you go in and set a notification on your phone for when the series is going to race, your phone will go off. Oh, you click the app, boom, boom, done. You don't have to watch the race if you don't want to. You just, okay, 50 points. And then on a Saturday, boom, 50 points. That easy. Don't have to do anything. Fantasy lineup, like I said, you select 5 drivers. and then you answer some head-to-head questions. Who do you think is going to win? And you get 10 points for each correct head-to-head question. If you go look at my YouTube page, you can look at my posts. I post the answer to the fan rewards question that comes out Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Powerball Wednesday cranks back up this Wednesday. So there's a chance to get another free amount of points. Normally it's 10, but last year my wife hit like 96 something points once or twice. I hit like 50 something once or twice, but normally it's 10. So don't, but again, it's just free points for opening an app and hitting a couple of buttons. The bonus question that you get, the fan rewards question, even if you get it wrong, you get the points. Now, where else are you going to get that? You can't go on Jeopardy and get the question wrong and get points. If you could, I'd go on Jeopardy. I could beat Ken Jennings. So to me, it's just a fun thing. And again, I mean, I'm obviously a big fan of the sport, but I'm also a big fan of free stuff. So, I mean, it's just how I am. And what I'm trying to do is bring this, like I've said numerous times, who is in my opinion, is the best fan sporting event there is. So I just wanted to bring it to more people and, hopefully get some more traction going with it for, I don't know, just because I think it's a great sport. I think it's a great family sport. You can go back and watch my NASCAR for Beginners series. There's one of them where I actually interviewed my wife to get a female's perspective on the racing and break down about families and all kinds of stuff. And I gave her the list of questions. She filled out her answers, and we sat here and I asked her about it. And if any of you know my wife, she's just going to tell you how it is. So I don't really have a fantasy lineup yet. I'm waiting to see how qualifying and the duels go before I set my lineup. Now, I will tell you this. Don't base your lineup on everybody starting at the front, because it's not going to end that way. This is one of the few races, the super speedway races is one where starting in the back isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you can get up front pretty quick. But riding in the back, you're a little safer from the big one. There's no other way to put it, the big one. So don't say, oh, I'm going to set my fantasy team and I'm going to take the top 6 or 5 drivers, whatever. Don't. That's not the way to go about it. You can only use each driver 10 times in the first 26 races. So if you just say, I'm going to choose the top 5 for every race, well, eventually one of those top drivers is going to run out of events, because they're going to start in the top 10 almost every race. Kyle Larson's, William Byron's, Ryan Blaney's, those guys always qualify well. So you've got to be able to have a mixture of not necessarily guys in the back, but you've got to kind of figure out, okay, who do I think? And this is where I'll be giving updates every week on my fantasy roster. I will probably, most qualifyings are done on Friday, some Saturdays. So if it's a Friday qualifying, then more than likely Saturday at some point, I will jump on with my fantasy lineup for the week and my head-to-head questions. If it's Saturday qualifying, I'll either go Saturday night or I'll post something early Sunday morning in plenty of time that you can get on, watch it, and still have time to set your fantasy lineup. Don't give me hate mail if your fantasy lineup's terrible, because if you follow my advice, mine's going to be just as terrible. So, like I said, watch some races. At the beginning, when you're just getting into it, if you don't really know any of the drivers, you can follow me. You can take some of my advice if you want for the qualifying and the fantasy team. And then as you start watching some races, you'll be, oh, wait a minute, I like that car. Oh, I haven't picked that driver yet. So you click on that driver. Well, he's going to be there. The good thing is you have a garage. So if you pick William Byron in the Daytona 500 and on lap 39 he wrecks and is out of the race completely, as long as it's before the third stage, which is the final stage of all races except for the Coca-Cola 600, which is 4 stages. But if you take and go in and you move your garage person in, then you get the garage person's points because William Byron wrecked on lap 39. He's out of the race. He's going to get you last place points, where even if the guy that you put in your garage finishes second to last, he's going to get you 1 extra point than what William Byron did. So this is the good thing about the fantasy with NASCAR is it's such a long season. And it's really there. Like I said, I don't do it thinking I'm going to ever win outright and win the big, huge grand prize that NASCAR gives away. I never expect that. I do expect to just get my points, my 50 points a week. And then when you hit streaks, you get 50 points and then another 100 points and then 200 points. So that's really why I do it. That and checking into the races. There's numerous times I haven't been able to watch a race because we've been on the road traveling back from like St. Louis from visiting my son or whatever. Now, I mean, I have it on the radio because I'm just an idiot like that. And I have Sirius XM in the car. So I have the NASCAR channel. So I listen to it, but it's just as easy before we start driving, just to check in. At least got my 50 points, set my fantasy roster before we left. I just drive, listen to the race. I normally don't get to change my garage pick if my guy wrecks, but that is what it is. So, kind of just some of the talk about NASCAR. I can't explain how big this race is for everybody in NASCAR. But it's big. I look forward to it every year. This is definitely a bucket list of mine. I've never been able to make it to the Daytona 500 yet. It is on my bucket list. If you know my wife, me going to Daytona is probably going to entail a whole week because she's going to go want to spend a few days at Disney. I'm pretty sure I'll make that trade-off. But it's different than any other race, not just the magnitude, but your super speedways, not necessarily Atlanta so much, but Daytona, Talladega has become kind of a strategy of fuel. And by that, I mean, a lot of times the guys up front aren't running 100% wide open. They're pushing all the air, so they're getting worse fuel mileage. Now, I heard this explained today by Rudy Fugel, the crew chief for William Byron. He said, if the leader's running 60% throttle, if you're 7th to whatever in line, so maybe 15th position, because there's 2 lines normally. So if you're in 7th in line, you might be running, and then you've got 7 more cars behind you, let's say, he said. So you got 7, you're in the middle. You might be running 20% throttle. So you're burning almost 0 fuel, and yet you're keeping up with the pack because of the draft. You're just pretty much getting pushed and pulled by the cars. Now, you may be saying, what does that have to do with anything? Well, the less fuel you burn when you do come into the pit, the less time you got to spend fueling your car up. if you're leading the race and you spend 10 gallons of gas and I'm running 7 and the pit cycle comes around and you've spent 10 gallons and I've spent 7, you got to put 3 more gallons of fuel in your car than I do. So it's a trade-off of time. And that's how close these speeds and these times are, is that split second, the least amount of time on pit road. The Daytona, you'll see them go out on their opening stage and they'll pit. And unless it's a caution, nobody's changing tires. If they do, they're putting right side tires on or left side. Normally it's just fuel and go. Same at the end of the race, gas and go. If it's a green flag pit stop, if it's under yellow, you'll see them change tires. But if it's under green, and the difference you'll see with this in Talladega especially is you'll see people pit, not necessarily with just teammates, but with manufacturer mates. And by that I mean you'll have Chevys pit with Chevys, Toyotas pit with Toyotas, and Fords pit with Fords. They do this because each car pushes different. So a Toyota is going to push a Toyota different than it's going to push a Chevrolet. A Chevrolet is going to push a Ford different than it will. So they do it to stay with manufacturers and teams. And then they come in and you'll see the Chevrolets will come in and sometimes you'll see a straggler. A Ford will jump in with the Chevrolets or a Toyota with the Fords or something. But generally, it's pretty much all of the manufacturers come together. Just like we were talking qualifying earlier, don't be surprised to see Fords dominate qualifying. They do at these tracks. There's times they'll have eight out of the 10 starting positions up the front will be Fords, but then Chevrolet wins the race. It's just the way the races play out. Some tracks, starting from the pole means a lot, and it gives you a huge advantage. Daytona, not so much. Like I said, I don't know how many times I've seen guys. There's races years ago where the winner of the race is like in 12th position with 2 laps to go and gets a push at the right time and just speeds by everybody and wins the race. There's you don't have these days of just dominating by just taking off and outrunning everybody. Everybody's too close. The competition is even a lot. The playing field has evened a lot. It's driver versus driver, and it's what little bitty knob can you turn to make the car that much better than this guy's car. That's what it's come down to. Somebody said the other day, you can make 15 different adjustments to a car, and you may make it 15 hundredths of a second or 15 tenths of a second worse, but you could also make it 15 tenths better. It's just a matter of, did you turn the knob too far to the right or not enough? So just lots of different aspects to watch in this race. You'll hear the phrase during the Daytona 500, oh, you can throw the top 30 under a blanket. Well, probably could. It's intense. And these guys are seconds, inches, milliseconds away from each other. I mean, they're there's times they're this far away from each other side by side. You'll see them going down the front stretch and the back stretch in Daytona, Talladega, and they are literally pushing each other, not getting up to them and making, like tailgating them. No, they're literally hitting them. And you'll see the car will be here and the car will come up and he'll bump him. And all of a sudden he's gone. And now the driver that got pushed out is riding the brake a little bit to let him come back and do it again. And they just keep doing this over and over and over. I mean, they're hitting each other at 180 miles an hour. and not lose. I couldn't imagine bumping into somebody at 40 miles an hour. So it's intense. It's insane. Cameras are everywhere in these cars, driver cams, front bumper cams, rear cams. So you'll see everything. You will literally have a camera and you will watch him hit the car in front of him. You don't see this in other forms of motor racing. I've been watching a bunch of reaction videos from F1 people watching Daytona stuff or our NASCAR stuff, and they're just freaking out. They're like, what are they doing? And I'm just laughing because they're not used to that kind of stuff. Everybody uses the line, and it's a terrible line, and I hate it, but rubbing is racing. I hate that line. It's not exactly true, but in NASCAR, they do rub. They do bump. They do hit. There's tempers. There's fights. It's all. If you also haven't seen it, if you go check out the NASCAR channel on YouTube, they posted their trailer for the upcoming season. Tagline is "Hell yeah." Go watch that video. The video is pretty good. It is actually it was the first commercial to air after the Super Bowl on NBC. NBC is a partner of NASCAR. They get the second half of the season. Fox does the first half, and then Amazon Prime. There's numerous. We'll keep everybody up to date. I'll have to do the schedule every week on this channel. Probably start doing this on Wednesdays. The preview for the upcoming race. We'll probably be doing a recap of the weekend's previous race on Mondays on tonight. Didn't really have a race to recap this week, so we're just going to do a preview this week because we do get started on Wednesday, so it's a little earlier. That's the game plan moving forward. Is Wednesday's Monday recap of the previous race, Wednesday preview of the upcoming race, and then, as I mentioned, Saturday, Sunday, whenever qualifying is, either the night of qualifying or the day after qualifying, I'll be going live again to update my fantasy lineup and let everybody know what's going on. Again, if you're curious and you can't seem to find the page on Facebook, you can drop your comment on the YouTube page under the video, or just message me on YouTube, and I will respond to you with the password and all the information you need to get signed up into the group. Other than that, we're going to call this. I mean, again, keep an eye on the weather down there in Daytona, and hopefully we get the race, in on time, and you never know. We're at the mercy of Mother Nature, unfortunately, in this event more than almost any other event. Football and all that'll play in the rain, just not the lightning. NASCAR, they'll race in the wet track, not a pouring rain, not a rainstorm, but they'll race if it's damp, just not on the super speedways. Too dangerous. But on the short tracks and road courses, they do have wet weather tires we will bring out. But it's too dangerous on a track this size, this much speed, and as close as the cars are together. So erring on the side of caution, which is always a good thing. Driver safety is the most important thing in my mind for this sport. So I hope everybody has a good evening. Was hoping we'd get a few more questions thrown in here, but it's Monday, and I think everybody's busy trying to get ready for that if it hadn't started already, that Arizona-Kansas basketball game tonight. So not going to be too mad at people, but everybody go enjoy your Monday. This race season. So if, you're going to see my ugly mug a lot. I can tell you that much, because this is my time now. From now till November, this is all about me, and this is all about my sport, and we're going to go at it, and we're going to have fun, and hopefully bring a few of you along the way with us, and we'll have a good time. Other than that, y'all have a good night, and peace.